5 o'clock,
You went to meeting, right?
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and, we call roll now or just?
Commissioner Snow,
Here.
Commissioner Curry, Commissioner Delanoy,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Mayor Penning.
Here. It's all you, Joe. It's all Michelle.
Hi,
got
this
it. Got the
is our
slide.
second budget work session, and tonight we're going to go over the general fund revenues and expenses. We already did the enterprise fund, so Michelle will take you through the slides. And again, if you have any questions, don't hold them to the end, ask them when you have them, and we'll try to address them as we go through.
All right.
Okay, so we're going to go through the governmental funds. That includes the general fund and also permitting, local option fuel, and the CRA. And these are two charts of historical information in 2014 to now, where we were and are with our taxable property value and where we were and with the millage rate, which was 7.53 in 2014, and now we're proposing a budget of 5.8, which is the rate for the current fiscal year. This rate at 5.8% ad valorem taxes will be $5,740,000 at 95%. This is $243,700 more dollars than the current fiscal year, based on the final property values. And this is a snapshot at the end of every fiscal year on 9/30 since 2019 to now, and you can see the increase in our net position. The net position is basically our assets less our liabilities. And in 2024, the 39.5 million consisted of 23 million of that is capital assets, so non-spendable. The CRA fund balance was close to 7.8 million, and 7.7 million was actually unrestricted as of that date.
So we should probably have a work session in the coming months and talk about how to spend that CRA money, come up with capital projects. This is money outside of the extension of the CRA, so we're not limited to what the county has restricted us on in the extension. But we really should kind of brainstorm a couple of reasonably large capital improvement projects for the district, whether it's a streetscape or entranceways or railroad crossings or something, but we should be able to make a large impact with that money that's sitting there. And the same thing with the general fund. We're starting to, we've got a very healthy unreserved fund balance, what am I looking for? Unrestricted fund balance. And you always have to be careful with that, because if you have too much of a fund balance, then the public will come out and go, well, why are my taxes still high? So one of the things that Michelle and I talked about today was we've really been pulling money out of our reserves for projects. We talked last time that the stormwater fund is pretty much down to nothing. So, and we used to take a lot of money out of the solid waste fund for storms. And because we've been doing the $200,000 a year out of the solid waste fund, we're really down to about $400,000 of unrestricted reserves, minus what we typically would keep in the reserves. So we're running tight on that. So maybe we should, when I was in Seminole County, we used to take excess funds like this and we would put it in what we called a rate stabilization fund that we would be able to draw down from rather than increase taxes. Well, we talked today about creating an emergency fund that, instead of handling storm debris and response out of the solid waste fund, is to have it in this general fund and set it aside there. That you've got, everybody says, oh, your reserves are for emergencies. Those reserves are for operational emergencies, that if we don't, for some weird reason, you lose your revenues, you've got money in the bank to continue operations, paying your staff, buying equipment, buying supplies. We don't have money to pay for the response. So if we can set money aside, a couple $1 million, whatever that may be, into an emergency fund that's designated for hurricane response or any other natural or man-made disaster that may come our way. So just something for us to consider.
2 questions. I know the governor just talked about getting rid of property tax. When will we know about that?
I'll be gone.
Yeah.
Because that's just the dumbest,
Okay,
that's just
all
the
right.
dumbest thing I've ever heard.
I know, we'll all be gone. But anyway.
I think
okay.
I think we will probably see something in 2027 along the lines of some impact to ad valorem taxes.
Okay.
Whether that's an elimination of tax, elimination of a percentage of tax. He wants to do something where he's going to increase the, to $500,000, no tax on the first $500,000 for property owners. I think it should go the other way. I think everybody should pay tax on the first $100,000 and then get a discount after that, because you get people that use the services that don't pay anything. So somewhere in that 2027 timeframe, I think we'll start to see something impact ad valorem taxes. But
Okay.
you will probably learn a little bit about that when you go to the conference in August. I'm sure
Okay,
that is going to be a
excellent.
subject that we'll talk about.
And also, he's working on capturing emergency funds money. So we need to consider that when we start putting in things in a quote, emergency fund.
Yeah,
Okay,
more to learn on that.
okay, great.
Okay, moving on to the total spend chart. This dollar represents where the funding for the governmental funds goes. And as you can see, police and fire equate to a total of just over 44%.
Yes, so nearly half of your general fund budget goes to public safety, police and fire. The dollar bill, this picture I think is more informative than your pie chart.
Definitely.
From a technical standpoint, the pie chart makes more sense, but from a layman's perspective, this dollar makes more sense because they get to see where exactly, the pennies within their dollars are spent. It's kind of a neat little.
It's a great graphic.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
We can do piles of pennies.
29
yeah.
pennies.
Yeah. Look at that.
Could do that stack.
Yeah, pennies.
Okay, moving on to the general fund. And the general fund includes commission, city manager, finance, customer service, HR, IT, PD, fire, code enforcement, road and streets, fleet, and facilities. And the proposed budget in 2026 is the bottom right for the general fund. And this is an increase of $223,342 over the current year.
So I'll just remind you that that number is pretty close to the cost increase of what law enforcement pay increases were this year. Now, because the budget did have some increases and some decreases, that's why we're balanced at the same millage rate. So we didn't have to increase the millage in order to get there. And remember, last year we had the fire station, so that took a couple of additional dollars to go ahead and get that outfitted and beyond what the
And
cost.
the commission pay was raised also.
Yep, and the commission's pay is raised, and we have to take that in for,
That chart.
Yep.
And we'll see by department in a few slides.
The commission pay is very small in comparison.
And really, okay.
It's actually 1.72% of the budget.
Oh, thank you. No. Obviously, I think it's wonderful, but.
Give it a slice.
All right. And this is a breakdown of our revenue in the general fund. As you can see, the ad valorem, and then the other taxes includes the half-cent sales tax and the local option. Utility taxes include electric, telecommunications, water, natural gas, and propane. Then we have state share, local business, franchise fees, which is the bulk of which is FP&L, but we also have TICO and gas. And then in this particular grant line item is the VOCA grant and the aggressive driving grant for the police department, and also the potential JAG grant. And we have the administrative fees. The administrative fees is the cost allocation for all of the general fund to the benefit of the Public Works and CRA funds. So it's actually an intercompany allocation.
What is the impact of our new satellite reading of our water meters?
Well, that was a project that we budgeted in the current fiscal year, just under $1 million. And we think once the project is complete, we will actually save on labor for field staff, but also give them the ability to spend more time doing maintenance type items that they haven't been able to do because they've been doing a lot of manual reads. So it's more of a shift, but the overall system for the residents will be much nicer. Everybody will have access to the ion water. The reads will be better, more accurate, and overall, I think we'll just see a higher quality of our service.
Great, okay.
Yeah, one of the areas that we're realizing the benefit, everybody said technology is going to save time and money, and so far it never really does. But the conversion to Tyler has caused some efficiencies in the utility billing department. Going over to this cellular read program is going to cause efficiencies in the utility department. And out of that, Michelle is looking to, I don't want to maybe reorganize, reconfigure her departments to take advantage of those efficiencies and streamline some of the processes in there. We're talking about potentially centralizing accounts receivable into one location, because we think that we'll be able to have the staff available to do that, and that'll create even more efficiencies throughout the organization.
Okay.
Okay, and then prior year carry forward this year, as we had discussed in the enterprise fund workshop, we are transferring some funds from the general fund to the stormwater for projects. And this is, I'm just going to skip this because this is really the same thing as the dollar bill. General fund expenditures. This is more in depth by department, where we were in 23 actual, 24 actual, 25 budget, where we are now and proposed.
Now, we'll point out to you that if you look at the executive line from 24 to 25, 26, there's a payout in there for my retirement. Doesn't mean I'm leaving, it just means it's in there and it'll carry forward. But, you know, when a manager goes in to drop, you know, anything can happen. Commissioners can decide it's time for you to go. So it's best to have that money budgeted. It'll sit there. It'll carry forward to the next year if need be, but if somebody ever says, why is that line item increased so much, it's because it's the payout of my accrued leave. I just want to disclose that.
Did you go on the drop?
September. See, there's that
Is
smirk.
drop like vested?
No, I'm just saying.
Like when you were-
Well,
Only giving us 5 more years of you.
Yeah, what drop, it's up to 8 now.
Up to.
Oh,
What
yeah.
drop means is that in Florida retirement system, or even police and fire, is I basically retire,
You could
but I
quit any
continue
minute.
working.
Okay,
And my pension check actually goes into a savings account into Florida retirement system until I leave.
okay,
So I will earn a pension check that gets put over here in FRS
right,
while I continue to work.
okay.
And that's all FRS, nothing special to me. It's all FRS people in police and fire.
Okay, and just to point out, the non-departmental includes machinery, equipment, and transfers to the capital project and stormwater. This budget includes 3 police vehicles, 1 zero-turn Skag mower, and 1 Ford F-150 for the streets department. And this is a pie chart of those expenditures. And This one depicts a year over year, so the proposed budget, original 25, proposed 26, and then the change. And as Joe had mentioned, you'll see changes in, even though there were increases in salaries and benefits, in the police department, they were offset because we had put additional money in the current year's budget for purchases due to the
You can come in and
changes in
get
the
that.
department. And then the same thing with the fire department, when they were switching stations, there were additional costs incurred this current year, so they kind of offset next year. You can even see a decrease despite the increases in salaries and benefits. And then for community development, we did add one position of a senior planner.
We already added it, or we're looking to add it?
It's in this current year, so we hired a fellow named Joshua Steele.
Right.
You don't see him very often because he sits in that
Oh,
office
I,
down the hall.
yeah, no, yeah.
Okay. And that's part of the succession planning that I'm trying to put in place, and I've gotten some succession plans from some of the department heads, because I think it's important to have something in place that we know how we're going to handle vacancies at the department head level or senior management level over the next several years, just so that we kind of know.
I don't want any while I'm a commissioner, I just want you to know.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not sure about that.
No changes.
Yeah, no promises.
Just watch the stock market.
All right, and now moving out of the general fund into the fuel tax fund. And this fund we use specifically for annual paving project and sidewalk replacement. And that $200,000, you see if there is the mobility fee, that's a transfer from the waste fund, which Joe had mentioned previously.
And again, we started doing the 200,000 back when Chris Villa was the mayor, and we were focusing on being one of the few cities that did have a paving program in place, and we've been doing it for several years now. Actually, it was John McKinney who came up with the idea to do it that way. And it's been working well, except it has been depleting the solid waste fund. So we've been doing this for well over 5 years. That's $1 million worth of paving that we got out of the solid waste reserves. And at some point, we need to stop doing that. And there's some thought to, and some of the cities have adopted this philosophy of not doing road paving and maintenance so that the roads deteriorate, so that the community gets mad about it, and then they'll go out and they'll support an infrastructure sales tax so that we can tax the people to go ahead and put paving programs in it. So that's a philosophy that is out there. So just kind of be aware of that when you hear some cities say that they don't do paving in their cities. They don't want to use ad valorem taxes or other revenue sources to pave roads other than the fuel tax fund, which we use specifically for paving and sidewalk improvements.
So the sidewalk improvement, I see we have 50,000 this year. Wasn't the number larger last year, like 150? And how much of it have we actually spent?
We have a good amount of money sitting in that project.
Some of that money is allocated for their improvements on Riverside.
So that's just going to be carried over?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know some of the projects that we weren't getting to, we were trying to grab some of that money and put it in, but I just didn't want to lose that sidewalk money.
That's there.
Okay.
And this is the permitting fund, 004.
So with this fund, I'll give Brian a lot of credit here. Coming from Seminole County, he's brought in a great deal of revenue, because before Brian was here, we didn't even charge to do plans reviews or special exceptions. I think we did variances, but there are a lot of things that we did not charge for, and the general fund was augmenting the 04 fund. And now we're not. We're not using, well, there's money set aside, $24,000 is set aside next year for the possibility to help offset the balance that budget. But to Brian's credit, he's brought in a lot of programs and funding revenue sources to help pay for his department, which has been a huge benefit.
Definitely.
And you can see that in the request for this year, we did increase the estimated revenue from the current year and decrease the transfers, and those transfers come from the general fund if needed.
How is there such a big spike in building permits in '24?
Well, you probably had 6th Street, the Vineyards.
Okay.
There were several, there are a lot of plans sitting on the shelf in Brian's office that people have come in and paid for their reviews, but they haven't gone to construction. I think permits have even been submitted, but they're sitting here. You've got the Zen Living Apartments on 3rd Street. There's a number of projects, I can't remember off the top of my head. And I don't know if they're delayed because of the interest rates that are out there or fear of the tariffs or what's slowing it down, but there is a concern that these projects are on the shelf, they just haven't been pulled off to start. So we've collected the revenue for those reviews.
Does the permit last forever, or at some point do they have to?
Building permits last for 6 months.
Okay.
Now, site development permits, which are the permits that we issue that allow a developer to go on and start moving dirt,
Right.
those basically don't have an expiration date.
Okay.
And those can cost, those are 2% of the cost or the estimated cost to develop the entire site. So some of those are, anywhere from $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. We had the RV park was about $95,000 that they paid.
And we have so many projects that don't go anywhere. Can we put a term limit on that?
That would be something that would have to come before you as a commission to
Okay.
say that a site development permit is only good for a certain amount of time.
Okay.
That would not be unheard of. There are many cities that do that. There are cities that even do that with PDs, that if you don't develop your PD within a certain number of years, it reverts back to zoning. So
It's easy to do with the PD because, like Brian said, it'll revert back to the underlying zoning for that particular piece of property. But to do it on a property that's already zoned and is entitled to that type of development, it looks like you're expiring the permit only to make them apply and get another fee out of them.
Obviously.
So we gotta be careful with that because the development community is very in tune with things like that.
Okay.
I think the only times that we do that is if there've been significant changes in the code or state regulations.
Okay.
But as the city manager stated, if all things remain the same,
Right.
then what's the use in having them come back?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, moving on to the CRA fund. CRA fund had a balance on September 30th of close to $6.3 million. Currently, we have an unassigned fund balance of $4,871,000.
So again, next year, I should say, the debt service in the CRA goes away. So that $850,000 that we're paying in debt service that I guess Jim McCroskey had taken that loan out, that ends next year. So again, we should sit down and figure out, based on that master plan that we did, what do we want to do with these funds? Holding on to them no longer makes any sense. We need to spend them for a worthwhile project and get something going with that.
That can only be used in the CRA area,
The
right?
CRA fund is restricted to the CRA area and only projects that are contained within that master plan.
And our new person is going to start soon.
I think she's going to start mid-August. She could have started now, but she would have worked a week, taken a week's vacation, and then come back, and I just didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
So,
And with this budget, we will be adding to that fund balance for additional projects, $1,371,000. And then we have debt payments of $850,000, but that will be the last year on that debt. And there were a couple decreases in the administration portion. We decreased some property improvement budget and some other services based on actuals over the last few years.
And we are meeting with Ernie next week to talk about the valuation of Marina Grande, whether it's really going down or what the status of that is. I want to get a better understanding of that. The other thing you need to keep in mind now is this time next year, we're going to be looking at the CRA fund much differently, because the following year, the 26-27 year, we will have restrictions on the monies that we get from the county. So that's where we take into consideration of what are we going to do with the law enforcement component. And keep in mind, we haven't really had a law enforcement presence in the CRA for the last year and a half. Maybe somebody just dipped in there for a couple of weeks and then they've come out. But we really haven't had a law enforcement component in the CRA. So that, by default, that's going to come out of the CRA budget. But then this commission needs to decide if you want to maintain that level of police service in the general fund. So that'll be a big impact to the general fund. And if you want to keep them in the CRA, you can, but you will fund it only with the money that the city's contribution goes into the CRA with. You can't use county money.
What are their actions in the CRA?
Say that again?
What is their what is their purpose in the CRA?
And I've been asking that question, JP. They are supposed to be community service officers, things that they used to do. We used to have a bike division where they would ride bikes. They used to visit the businesses. They would do business checks during the night. They did community programs like, they used to visit I keep saying used to because it's not happening anymore. They used to visit the kids at the Boys and Girls Club. They would do coffee with a cop.
They visited the Boys and Girls Club apparently today.
Visit today.
About the dog over there.
No, outside the CRA. So it was more community policing programs than anything, and community policing is important.
Yeah, I used to see them on the bikes.
Yeah, but yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Is the Explorers Club going?
I don't know what the status of it is. The chief is working on the Explorer program. As you know, the 5-0 Club is not going to be in existence this next year. With the UBIC school closing for this next year, hopefully they'll reopen the following year. I know that he's still striving to build the Explorer program, and they've got a couple of people down there that are going to take leadership roles in that. I just don't know what the status of it is.
And this budget includes 1 sergeant and 2 officers. As you can see in 2024, that's an actual, even though we budget the same sergeant and 2 officers, we really only spent about half the budget in that year. This is the capital projects fund. That money is transfers from the general fund, the $288,000 plus some investment income. And this is a breakdown of what that money is used for: air conditioning replacements, YMCA air conditioning replacements, audio-visual upgrades to the commission chambers, play door replacement, and the Ross Point Playground. And we did submit for a grant for Ross Point Playground and found out today that we received $46,000, so that will offset that 100.
Excellent.
Yeah, Mary wrote the grant, and we were ranked actually #1.
Hey, good job.
It's a Daytona racing
Definitely.
grant.
I see a little pride there.
Should be.
Good for it.
Yeah.
So with capital projects, where are we at with Ross Point Pier and Second Street Pier? I know we've been denied and denied and
Yeah.
denied, but
They're
at some
still
point we're gonna have
FEMA
to,
projects.
at some point we're gonna have to fix them.
Well, if I may, the Ross Point Pier, we just sent out an appeal that's going to everybody. And I'm sure that you're aware of that one going to US reps and everything else. Down at Riverside, we're doing it a little bit differently because it's not so incredibly expensive. You have a couple of options. You can wait until FEMA obligates projects and then do it, or you can kind of take a chance. So if something happens to this building, we need to fix the roof, we'll fix it and expect FEMA to pay us back. Wasn't that expensive. Riverside, we're looking at $250,000. to get that pier back up and running. We can do that, so we're gonna move forward. I'm working on getting quotes from the pier manufacturer, Gator Dock, so we can do a under direct purchase from them. And then we're gonna have to put the labor out to a formalized bid. And I'm hoping that the folks that are doing the seawall now, since they're already there, will provide us for, a decent cost. So that one, we should be able to get done. The Ross Point Pier, that you're talking about $1 million, and I really think we have a good argument against FEMA, so I'd like to see what happens there.
Yeah. And if you remember when James Holleran did the audit presentation, he mentioned that we take a very conservative approach to our
Right.
projects because we don't move forward with them until we get an obligation from FEMA. We could move forward and do the projects like other cities that have a little bit more money and hope that we'll get reimbursed, and it's likely that we would, but in many cases, it takes 10 years.
Ross Point, they turned us down.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if we had gone ahead and moved forward, we'd be out $1 million.
Yeah.
But we would have a new pier. That's
Yes,
the whole point.
But you'd have the choice to not have a pier at all.
Right.
You
Well,
you could make some
No,
discussions.
you could make that decision, but
Yeah.
I'm constantly, people are, when are you gonna fix that pier? When are you gonna fix that pier? You're on the residents that their piers are all torn up, and your dock is the worst in town, and the taxpayers are paying for it, so if it was my decision, I'd say go ahead and do it. I mean, if we have extra money in the general fund that we're looking in the reserves, I'd say spend $1 million and get because whether they turn us down or pay us, my opinion is that pier needs to be there. If
Yeah.
I'm the only one out, then tell me to shut up,
No.
but I think that pier needs to go back.
Yeah, because what's the gamble on it? If we repair it, we're still in the running for the.
We've been denied.
And not necessarily, there's
Do they-
all kinds of rules that FEMA has.
Yeah.
First of all, now you're not really in a place to repair it, because it got hit by Milton and by Ian, you're kind of looking at a replacement. So if we replace it, and FEMA finally comes back and say, yeah, we'll allow you to repair it, so, but we just replace it, we get nothing.
Okay.
So what about repairing it? I mean,
If we
we're ahead of the
but
game.
you kind of can't. If the condition now, we're missing the entire length up into the dog leg. I mean, that's in very bad shape. Plus, the pilings are 5 feet down. The next storm that comes in is going to take it out.
So it's past repair.
Yeah.
It's past repair, so it's for
Yeah.
replace. So if we replace it, are we out of the running for FEMA? I mean, is FEMA just
Well,
say,
you're-
oh, you
you're
did
just
it,
at risk.
we're done?
We're at risk. And then there's all kinds of variables. The next one that we tried on different ones is not only do you want to replace it, but we want to harden it so that FEMA's not back in a couple of years. But each of those have different risks to it.
And we don't want to replace it with the same
No,
construction
yeah.
material
Yeah,
or
sure.
design because obviously they didn't work. And the Second Street, the Riverfront Park, that was a good design, it was good material, it lasted through several storms, but it got taken out by silt. So these abandoned boats are really what are doing most of the damage to our piers and docks because the winds and everything come from the ocean, they come in, and it blows every abandoned boat from the Daytona side to the Holly Hill side. And we suffer the damage from it. And most of these boats are not registered, there's no ownership to them, there's no insurance on them, so we suffer the damage.
Right, but so since we're setting the budget though, I mean, I don't want to wait another 18 months for FEMA to tell us no.
I know where you're heading. I think what
Yeah.
we do is we have a work session on it and we determine what we want to do with the
I mean, we
funding.
can always amend the budget, right?
Yeah.
But it's just like, if it knocked the clubhouse down and the clubhouse doesn't get used, I mean, we can sit and wait. But our Riverside is our biggest asset, and that park is an eyesore.
I mean, fortunately, you have Sunrise Park and it's much further extended pier for
Right.
people to use. And if you remember, there was a pier at Sunrise South and we
Yeah.
actually took that one out because
Yeah.
we had Sunrise North there. But you're right, West Point is a nice park. It's a good neighborhood park.
Yeah, I'd like to see it upgraded.
And we wanna-
Like we did with Sunrise
Yeah.
Park.
Well,
You know, we have a dirt parking
Well,
lot. I'd like
I
to see
just,
that.
you were in an office when we considered paving Ross Point Circle, and because of its location, you have to do a whole wetland impact.
Yeah.
So it's not just a matter of going in and paving it, it's a big to-do because it's right up against the river. So we had it on the plan, and Antoine ended up saying, it's not worth doing.
Everything.
So like I said, we're getting a new playground in there, so that'll be nice. If we can get the pier fixed, it'll become a nice parking. We just put the bathrooms in a couple years
So
ago.
pavers too, I mean, that's not a pervious type thing, so
Depends on the type of paver. You can put a pervious paver in there and accomplish the same thing, make it look good and still have.
without going through all the other stuff? Without going
We'll have to
through-
double check and just to make sure, but I think anytime you do work in that area, it's still gonna take, does the Corps of Engineers get involved or?
Yeah, it's a major drainage issue because of where it is.
Well, I'm with John, I think that we need to upgrade, I mean, this was a nice spot, fished on that pier until it went out, I mean, it's a great pier. I mean, it's good.
All right,
A lot of
well-
people use it,
We'll set up a work session and
I'm for that.
Okay, looking ahead, tonight on the agenda is the adoption of the maximum millage rate, which is being proposed at 5.8%. And then on Monday, September 8th is the first public hearing, and Tuesday, the 23rd is the final public hearing.
What do the public hearings involve? Is it a commission meeting?
it's such like an ordinance. We do it at the very beginning of the meeting because it's more time certain that we say the public hearings for the ad valorem taxes is at 6 o'clock. So we do it at the beginning of the meeting. It's called a public hearing because everything's a public hearing now since the law has changed. But we specifically do an advertisement and a public hearing on this and gives the public an opportunity to speak. Historically, we maybe get one or two people that'll speak on our millage, but I don't think we've even had that in the last couple of years.
Wow. Well, it's tough to complain when it's with its history.
Yeah.
Well, the complaint we'll get is people will ask us to go a rollback, which is lowering the millage, but we have to remember, like Joe said, holding the millage rate is basically the police officers' raises that we just approved.
Right, yeah.
That's the 200,000.
I wouldn't say that as being the cause. I would just do that as a comparison of the dollars. Because we can say that about all the other.
Well, it's all the other departments too, but I
Yeah.
mean, I think we talked about it.
But, you know, I did, who was I talking with? I think Janine, and I was signing the personal action forms, and I'll just make a note, and I don't regret this, I don't regret the decisions, because the police department is underpaid, but I just looked up one sergeant's pay increase, it's nearly $9,000 this year.
Wow.
My pay increase is $2,000. Michelle's pay increase is $2,000. So just to kind of give you an idea of the magnitude of the pay increases, if anybody comes up there to my office from the police department to complain, somebody better hold my arms back because I wouldn't want to smack them.
But it
Smack some sense
does,
into it.
it does put us recruiting in a better position.
I don't think so. And again, this is my personal opinion, is that, you know, Bill Arthur, he was the mayor back here in the early 90s. You know, Roy's known him, most of you have known him for years.
We gotta go out there again.
He actually stopped in here
Did he?
last week, yeah. He had the philosophy of police officers and firefighters should be considered training. You come here, you work a couple of years, and you go to a bigger agency and you get a real job. That's what he used to say. Because we are not big enough for police officers to get that experience that they want, that they see on TV. We're just not there.
Yeah.
So I don't think our pay increase is going to do much in the terms of marketing and bringing more people in, because we still don't have all of those bells and whistles that the other agencies have in their police department.
So no longevity with it either, doesn't keep people here longer.
I think there's a threshold. When you get to a certain point, and it's got to do with the pension, we have a very good pension plan in the police department here. I think that when a young officer comes in and they are here for 6 or 7 years, they're going to make it to 10. They're going to get to that vesting, and then they're going to stay. And then whether they stay beyond that,
Right.
if they stay beyond that, they'll go the full 20 years.
Okay.
But once they get vested and now they have that pension locked in, that's another window for them to go, all right, now that I've got my 8 years' experience here, I'm gonna go apply for the county or for Daytona or for wherever and go to a bigger agency because I've locked in my pension here.
Right.
You can't take it
Okay.
away.
Yeah.
So I personally don't think it's gonna have a big impact on recruiting, only because we don't have the bells and whistles that other agencies have, and I don't think we ever will. There's just not a big demand for that. And when I was talking to Janine today, now, we gave an 11% increase to our officers. So there are other cities that are still calling around to find out what increases we've given to everybody. And I don't like when they ask what the percentage increase is, because the percentage increase to our officers at a lower salary is much more than an officer in Daytona Beach that's got a higher salary. They shouldn't be asking what percentage increase you've given. They should be asking what is the salary that they're making.
What's the range?
Yeah.
How much are they making, and compare your salaries, not the percentage increase.
Okay.
Statistically, what's our oldest, or not oldest, but our longevity in the office of police officers? Like, we got 5 years, we got guys down there that have been in there for 5.
More than
guys-
half the department has less than 3 years.
Is that right? That's good.
And that's because of the recent turnover involving Jeff
Yeah.
Miller and Chris Yates that
Yeah.
was the problem down there. So I would say at least 11 or 12 of the officers have less than 3 years, and probably, well, I'll tell you, it's the sergeants. It's Schaefer, Weiss, Marquez, Hutchinson, and Barrett that have more than 10 years. And then after that, your next group of people are like Rosabella and Palm that have 4 years. So we have an extremely young department, so young that they're not even qualified to become corporals because they don't have enough years of servicing. So we've got this opportunity of these young folks to come up and kind of make a name for themselves. But like I said, we hired a lot of people in this last year and a half. So when they get to that vesting point in their career, they're going to sit back and say, well, do I want to finish my career here, or do I want to vest here and I want to spend the next 20 years at another agency? So I think when they get to that vesting year, that's the next opportunity that you're going to see potentially an outpouring of our officers going to another agency.
Anything else?
Okay.
Any other questions?
All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
thanks for your time and
Thank
support.
you.
Michelle's done a great job working on this budget with the help of the staff.
You didn't close yet, did you? Can I
No.
ask something, can I talk about something that's a little bit off topic, not really off topic? okay?
As long as you're on the record.
I was in the other day, Monday, when I was talking, I came in, I talked to Brian, I talked to, I can't remember his name in code enforcement. But, you know, we charge homeowners, or somebody that owns a property in Holly Hill, a fee to rent a house. Like if I have a house, I buy a house, and I want to rent
They
it,
pay business tax receipt.
you know, business tax receipt.
Right.
And what do we call that? What do we call that, a license?
It used to be called an occupational license, and now it's called a business tax receipt, but same
Business
thing.
tax receipt. Okay, I mentioned and talked with Brian, I just hit Brian up just for basic information, just to clear my own head. But when, you know, when a business, and I'm pro-business, I really am, I think we gotta have businesses in Holly Hill, we always have. There's some ideas I don't like about moving them around, getting them into the residential areas as close as we do, but we've inherited that over the years, so you can't prevent that. But they don't pay that, they pay taxes, just like I pay.
Business tax receipt.
They pay a business tax receipt to rent to somebody in their
No.
facility? They don't?
No, a property owner owns a property, the tenant pays a business tax receipt. Is that what that's
To be in
talking about?
business.
Yeah.
Well,
So
but he
if
doesn't-
I own a building and I've got, and I lease the building to Ace Hardware pays a business tax receipt, I as the building owner do not. Is that right, Brian?
Yes,
Yeah, that's
unless
right.
you as the building owner also.
Unless
put the
I'm the
office.
occupant.
Yeah.
Right, unless
I
you're
I
also-
own my building and that my business is located in, and
Yeah.
we pay a business tax
You
receipt.
bill, yeah, you pay your taxes, basically.
No, we pay a business tax receipt, and we pay property tax, and we pay sales tax, and we pay,
So,
employment tax and
so
unemployment
whoever's
tax,
renting the
payroll
buildings,
tax.
I'm renting now from John, and I say, and John, I pay John rent every month. So I'm paying a tax receipt to the city. Well, I know I have to have my business, I have to have my license through the city.
But you pay a business tax receipt for the luxury of doing business in the city of Holly Hill.
Is that your license?
That's your occupational license.
So that's your occupational license?
Right.
But that's
And you
just
used to have-
that's your occupational license. That's not the same thing as what we're charging somebody that rents a house.
It's
Yeah,
the
same.
same thing, it's just a different word. And you used to have to, until
So,
COVID, you used to have to get one from the county also.
so if we're doing business in Holly Hill and I come here to get a license and I'm not renting anything, I'm still paying the business tax receipt? Is that what you're saying?
If you have a business, you're paying a business tax receipt.
Even though I don't have a building per se that I'm renting?
If you're running your business, let's say you've got JD's Handyman Service and
Yeah.
you're operating out of your home.
Yes.
You will pay a business tax receipt on your business out of your house.
Then that's my license?
That's your occupational license.
So that's my occupational license?
It's got nothing to do with your licensing from the state.
No,
Right.
I get that. So, I mean, anybody that does business in a city has to have occupational license for that city. I mean, I used to have 10 of them.
But they don't call it occupational
County
license
too.
anymore.
Yeah.
It's called business tax receipt.
That's what it's
the
called.
same exact thing, yeah. So that's a fancy new name.
So that's what we call it when somebody's renting a house to somebody, it's a business tax receipt that the renter, the rentee has to pay.
The
city.
landlord pays.
Landlord pays the city.
Yeah, in the residential side, the landlord pays to have somebody live in his house. On the commercial side, the
Occupant.
Yeah, I get
occupant
it.
pays.
Yeah, I get it. it seems like we're missing out on something there. You know, I mean.
So you kind of want to say the business owner should pay an occupational license because you have a business.
Well, it's
and
not
then-
an occupational license, it's a business tax receipt.
Business tax, they should have a business tax receipt because you are owning and leasing the property out, and the tenant should pay because they're the one that's running.
Well, the tenant's
business.
paying his rent, but tenant's getting a license to work in the city.
It's not a bad idea, we'd bring a lot of revenue in.
I
A
know.
lot of
I mean,
points for
if
me.
I own a house and rent, I have to pay
All
that.
right, tax through the,
Even
And
if you just
in
did
the
50
case of
$50
like-
a
It's
property.
not that much either. I mean, a person that rents a house and it pays
$300
$50 or
for flags.
$60 a year to rent that house in the same way. If that was, you don't have to make some big
Friday morning,
increase
8
unless you
o'clock.
go by square footage.
some guy comes in,
And
takes
in
my
the case
flags
of
out
like Fountainhead,
and steals the
when
pegs
somebody
that
moves
are in the
into
ground
the
and
condo
runs off.
in that building,
It's on
will
video.
they pay that tax?
That's our new code enforcement activity.
It's kind of a unique way to look at it. I
Yeah.
don't know if anybody else is doing that. It's certainly worth inquiring about.
Brian, did you say that you've heard of that in other cities where they've done that?
Where the
Similar
business
to
owner
that?
pays an occupational business tax receipt and the tenant pays a business tax receipt.
I haven't heard that,
No?
no.
I thought maybe I missed it.
What if it's the same person?
We just pay, well, then you gotta pay twice, you double dip it.
Good job.
You pay rent to yourself?
But,
Yes.
Aha, so you are making money.
But but thanks to our governor, I don't have to pay sales tax on that anymore as of October 1st.
Right. You and every other person that's getting overtime doesn't have to pay federal tax on that, which is a huge, huge benefit.
It just came to mind because
Or
it
tips.
seems not unfair, but it just seems
Well, tips
I'm gonna
is
start-
after 25,000.
presidential in a way.
Right.
Presidential.
I'm gonna start a movement that we go back to 15% in tips instead of 20. They're not paying tax on it anymore, so.
That's a savings.
They weren't paying tax on it anymore.
I don't look
Yeah.
at 20%, I look at the
Yeah.
service. If the service is
gas,
good, I'll
it's
tip
like
them
gas.
well. If it's not, I don't tip them that good. If they're not doing well, I don't tip them. I'll tip them, but I'm not very much. They're
Anybody
good
that's-
service, I tip them very
Anybody
well.
that's tipped in cash is a fool if they claim it. Just saying.
Yeah. Well, you have to claim a percentage of your food sales if you're in,
Business owner.
no, the person, the individual person.
Speaking of restaurants, anyone, you see DB Pickles went out of business?
Yeah.
I sure did.
It's
Owen,
surprising.
Owen
Pete
employee.
sold it 2 years ago.
And I think that what happened is the new owners weren't running it, and is Tom still working there?
I don't know. I don't think any of the original guys
Well,
are
they're
there.
not there anymore, but Tom was there forever.
Well, their head chef was the cook at Pictona now. He left a year and a half ago.
I guess he saw the writing. But I mean, Edie Pickles has been around for,
It was good food.
09, I think, 05, a long time, 20 years. We're done. Cut it off. Sorry. I thought you already cut it off.
Adjourn. I got